Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows. Sorry about that. I did not realize my mic was not turned on. So great to have you with us today on this Friday. Let's see here. We have a few things to get to. There's a few news stories that I want to discuss with you. We're also going to talk about the terrible shooting that recently took place at the Florida State University and how the media is, of course, already promoting their narrative because there's a flowchart for all of these mass killings, and they have their agenda that they're going to promote one way or the other. And then we're also going to, because this is Friday, the Friday before Easter, and of course, it's come to be called Good Friday because many speculate that Christ was crucified on this day, and I think that's entirely possible. And for those who've never heard of this idea before, you just got to do the math. 3 days, 3 nights, exactly how does that math work there? And what did Jesus mean by heart of the earth? Is he referring to the tomb, or was he referring to Jerusalem? And if so, then yeah, maybe it was Friday. Now, with all that being said, let's first and foremost discuss the story of the Florida State shooting. Now, apparently, this was yesterday. There was a shooting that took place at Florida State University, and it seems like there has been, from what we're being reported right now, at least 2 people have been killed. That doesn't count the shooter, the killer, by the way. The killer actually, I think, was wounded and then apprehended and is currently alive. So, interesting situation in which actually the killer is alive. We don't always get these murderers living because they either kill themselves or they get killed in the gunfire with law enforcement. Now, here is the interesting thing. We know very little still about the cause of the shooting, but that doesn't stop the media from immediately releasing all that they can. So here is the flow chart. I've tried to revise it. I'm going to make an actual flow chart eventually of how the media and politicians respond to these shootings. So, number one, I think the key question is, I was going to say the key question is, was it an AR-15? But now I don't think that's the first question. I think the first question is, what is the race of the individual, okay? So if the individual is any minority, at least for the United States, because if you look at worldwide, I mean, it's not like the majority of people are white, right? But yeah, concerning the United States, is he a minority? If the suspect is minority, it becomes really just a question of, did he use an AR-15, okay? If the minority suspect killer used an AR-15, the discussion is gun control, all right? We need to ban guns. If the minority killer did not use an AR-15, it basically gets buried, okay? There is no story. It'll be briefly mentioned. There will be vague references to gun control, but the problem is the AR-15 is the gun they want, that they want banned. I mean, they want to ban all guns, but they know that it's very difficult to get any kind of ground on, banning shotguns or handguns, anything like that. So they go after the AR-15. So immediately, and there's been so many of those stories, many of those shootings, that it was minority suspect, a minority killer, and this killer did not use an AR-15, so the story gets buried and you haven't heard about it since, okay? The other category, I guess we could say, is the next question is, was the killer, or the alleged killer, we can use that kind of language, was the alleged killer a part of the LGBTQ, I think that's how many letters they have now, community? Because if they are, once again, the question goes back to, did they use an AR-15, okay? And then if they use an AR-15, well, then you'll get some stump speeches about gun control, and then that's about it. Because, once again, the minorities and the LGBTQ community, excuse me, are the protected demographics, right? Now, if the alleged suspect, the alleged killer in question, is white, okay? immediately it will be racism. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter who the victims are. I apologize for having to clear my voice. Give me 1 second. There we go. Maybe that's better. It's springtime in Oklahoma. I've been out clearing brush and everything, so forgive me. So, if the alleged suspect is white, they will immediately cry racism, okay? That's their first step. The next step is, do we have any ties to Trump, conservatism, Christianity? Those are the next big questions. And if there is the most slightest thread between Trump, Christianity, conservatives, you name it, boom, there it is, white nationalism, white supremacy, Christian nationalism, you name it, okay? So there's the narrative. We're off and running. And then, of course, they'll say, well, did he use an AR-15? If he used an AR-15, great, here we go, gun control, that's the whole package. They love nothing more. And I really do use that strong language. It's quite sick to say. But there are a few things that the media enjoys more than the stories about a white person using an AR-15 who has vague ties in some way to the right and Christianity. That's their favorite story, because then they get to say all their favorite things, and you know that's the case, because when it is a radical Islamist or it is a transgender identifying person who murders children in a Christian school, silence, they do not care. They could not care less because it doesn't fit the narrative. Now, we are consistent. We believe that every single one of these shootings is a tragedy, which is why we always call for getting rid of gun-free zones. Get rid of them. The vast majority of the time, they are taking place at gun-free zones, like universities. Florida, it's a shame that they don't have a law that says if you're a grown person and 21 years of age is what the current age is, we could discuss whether or not that has merit. I mean, okay, so you're old enough to carry a machine gun in the military at 18 years old, but you can't carry a handgun at 21. Interesting situation there. Get rid of the gun-free zones. That way there's not something called a soft target, all right? Soft targets are, if you are looking to murder as many people as possible, where do you go? You go to the soft target. That's why you don't go to the movie theater that doesn't have a no firearm sign. You go to the movie theater that does have a no firearm sign, and then you know that at least many people will not be able to protect themselves. That's why they love to go to schools, because there's no firearm signs at schools, which is a very dumb idea. It's a very dumb idea. Or malls, you name it. So, we're consistent. Every shooting is a tragedy. Every mass killing is a tragedy, and we want solutions to all of them. I don't care who is, I don't care who does it. I don't care what their nationality is. I don't care what gun they used. I don't care what their motives were. I want there to be guns in the hands of honest citizens who can shoot bad people. Like, that's what I want, all right? That's what needs to happen. Because a police officer cannot be everywhere at one time. But you know who is everywhere at one time? People are. You go to the restaurant, there's people there. And primarily fathers, because that's your job. It's your job to protect your family. So if there's fathers in every public place, there should be a armed citizen ready to draw his gun and kill bad guys. Plain and simple. We do not live in a utopia. We do not live in a perfect world. All right? There are going to be killers no matter what. Just go to England and get stabbed and you'll find out, oh, guns are not the problem. And you know what they're doing? They're banning knives. So guess what? Now if you're a bad guy, you make your own knife and you know that the poor guy who's following the law ain't going to be able to do a thing about it. So you can go up and stab him and then kidnap his girlfriend or whatever. You're making helpless victims. That's all that England does. And we'll talk about England here in a little bit too, because Britain supposedly is maybe having a little bit of a return to Christianity. Is it too little, too late? You'll have to hold on. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So here's the thing with this Florida State killer. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, you name it, they're having a heyday. because the killer is a white male. So right off the bat, white males are the most evil beings that could possibly exist. That's why it's very possible that we have, based upon the current available evidence, it would appear that a white male was murdered at a track meet. Allegedly, the suspect murdered this white male. And so far, all that's happened is the alleged suspect's family has received nearly $1 million. They bought a new home and a new vehicle and armed security, and now they're selling merchandise. So a lot of interesting things going on in America these days. But here it is, a white male is the problem. I'm not going to give the name or the face. Unfortunately, CNN is posting it all over everywhere, as well as many other places, but we don't do that here. I don't name mass killers like that. And so here is the thing. You have the article right here. I don't know if I was going to show you really any of it. It's going to be kind of hard to. There's a little bit of information here. So first of all, the background of this individual is kind of hard to follow. It appears, was not being raised by his biological mother. That's what it appears. It appears he was being raised by another woman. And this is my efforts to make sense of what I'm reading, okay? So the biological mother of this young man who was a student at the university was not the one raising him, and neither was his biological father. I'm speculating here. Now, I could be wrong on that, but apparently he was in custody or had been raised and maybe even adopted by a deputy sheriff, female, in Florida. And apparently what happened is he was able to get a hold of one of her firearms, one of the old firearms that had been registered to her. And he used, I believe, a handgun. All right, so here's the thing. They don't have an AR-15 in the story, so guess what? They're not going to be able to, run with that story. So unfortunately, they're just going to have to cry racism. Now, there has been a few things that this shooter has posted, okay? Making references to multiculturalism, how it's a problem, things like that, which are popular amongst young people right now, just on the internet. That's just how it is. CNN is claiming he has been pro-Trump, and he does seem to be registered a Republican. So you know what that means? Evil, white supremacy, Christian nationalism, because there's a picture of him with a cross necklace, because kids don't ever wear cross necklaces just to wear them, right? So, with all of this being said, if you were to get on CNN, MSNBC, the big story is Trump supporter is a racist and murders people in mass shooting. We don't even know who the victims are. I'm just curious if they are releasing any of the victims. I mean, so here's the thing: if they're claiming racism, right? Because that's what they want to do. Would it make sense that one of the victims here, wouldn't it make sense that the victims would be of a minority race in America? But we don't know who the victims are. So it could be the case that, hey, yeah, he targeted only minorities. But we don't know. And that's the amazing thing about the left-wing media. They run with their narrative, and all that people see is they see the main headlines that happen at the very beginning, which says, Trump supporter commits mass shooting. And then a few days later, a few weeks later, all their story is not entirely correct. And it's very possible that a lot of what CNN's reporting is not correct either. And just wait, there will be an updated, redacted story or the backtracking story that says, well, none of the, this is hypothetical. Either it'll be something like none of the victims were of minority, or, well, he said some things that seemed pro-Trump, but then prior to the shooting, he had recent posts that said he hated Trump. And those will not be the main headlines. They will be on page 7 of the U.S. News of CNN, and nobody will read it. That's just how they do things. And it's not just CNN, it's MSNBC and all the rest. So what do we know right now? We know nothing. We know very little at all. And so it sounds to me like we're going to find out more that he was much more of a disturbed individual, that he had a lot of warning signs. Okay, plain and simple. Let's talk about this matter of the Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony story. This may be, Trump is such a massive figure, so he'll probably be the major focal point of many history books in the 2020s of this decade. But I'm telling you right now, this story right here may have potentially the greatest impact for race relations and society in the United States. It's this story, and this is coming from the Daily Wire here, of race and legacy media. So there's nothing new that I really have to tell you about what we know. The officer that brought Carmelo Anthony to the vehicle at the field, here's his account. The suspect at this point was on the track out on the north end. There was a chain link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, "I was protecting myself." It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons, and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while we were walking along the fence. I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence, which he complied, towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking off the track, the suspect also said he put his hands on me. I then detained the suspect in handcuffs, handcuffed behind his back, and had him sit on the ground. Now, Officer Ricky also had arrived on the scene. I had conducted another pat-down of his person and then searched his person after he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. This is the officer's words here. The suspect, Carmelo Anthony, then responds and says, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Next, Officer Ricky and I walked the suspect to the patrol vehicle, which was on the northeast gate of the stadium. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said he put his hands on me. I told him not to. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. I searched his person once again, and I had him sit in the back seat area of the patrol vehicle. While the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw the blood out loud, so it would be captured on my body-worn camera. It should also be noted the suspect asked me, "Is he going to be okay?" while he was in the back seat. Now, that's interesting there. Who is he speaking to? I guess he's talking about the Austin Metcalf, the boy he stabbed. Officer Alvin Fisher, the first officer to speak with Metcalf's twin brother, Hunter, who was with him at the time of death. And that's an interesting question. One of the things we don't know right now is, are there witnesses? That's going to be the major question of this trial. Who was there? You would have to imagine people were there and they saw it. If it's eyewitness testimony, we should have a pretty consistent story, I think. Let's go ahead and read a little bit more of this. When I arrived, the crime scene was already marked off and a suspect was in custody. I began asking people if they were witnesses to anything. I made contact with Hunter and then E and a few kids that were there. They were both breathing heavily and crying due to the nature of events. They were with coaches on the field, and it was pouring down rain. I tended to ask them both what had happened. I could not really get anything out of Hunter, but another student stated he wanted to speak. I asked him what happened. He stated that they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent when another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. Then, said Austin, who was the victim, he told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin, the male, went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. Then, during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag he had. It was at this time the male took out the knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. This was all that he had remembered when he talked to the officer. Talked to me, speaking from the officer's perspective. So, we're going to have to wait and see exactly how this plays out. What we're hearing so far in this story, I don't understand how there is a strong case to be made that using lethal force was justified. Now, we have not, on this show, we have not said really anything concerning motive. We're just trying to report what we have heard so far. And what we're hearing is there was a dispute about where this Carmelo Anthony was allowed to be. He was not supposed to be in his tent, or in this tent of the other school. Austin Metcalf tries to get him to leave, and high school boys, being high school boys, may have shoved him to get him out of the tent. Now, you could say he instigated the physical confrontation, maybe so. There's an argument made there. But shoving someone to have them get out of the tent is not use of lethal force. If anything, if he wanted to press charges, I mean, that's like, what, a misdemeanor at best? And so, but then you've also got trespassing on the behalf of Carmelo Anthony. This is going to be an interesting story because it's going... I see this being highly racially motivated. I think it's going to continue to be like all of those that were a part of the George Floyd matter, BLM, all of that, they're going to get in on this. If there is money to be made, okay, Al Sharpton, whoever else, right? If there's money to be made, they're going to get in on the action. If they think they have a legitimate chance to get away with this, assuming the story we've heard is correct, because based on what we've heard so far, we haven't heard anything that justifies the alleged story, and based upon the actions of the alleged killer, the alleged suspect, there's nothing that's in this story that leaves room for justified self-defense. If there is room for it, by all means, let us know. Because we just want justice to be served. But unless Austin Metcalf somehow threatened him, saying, I'm going to kill you, he tried to choke him to death, he pulled out a weapon of his own, he tried to hit him over the head with a chair. I mean, unless you use some kind of dangerous force in which, excuse me, it would cause him to really fear for his life, a little shoving match in the tent, those things happen every week at high schools. Every week. And people are not getting murdered. So here's the question I have for you. Let's say this does turn into some major racial ordeal, and no evidence changes from what we heard. We have eyewitness testimony that's essentially what happened. If somehow, due to outside pressure, just like there was outside pressure at the Derek Chauvin trial, if due to outside pressure, they manage a way to get Carmelo Anthony off with justified self-defense, and I don't know how, but at the same time, Derek Chauvin sitting in prison today for crimes that he just simply did not commit. He was found guilty, certainly, sure. By the way, I'm losing subscribers like on a daily basis right now. So be checking to make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube does not like what we're talking about right now. or people don't like what I'm talking about, and that's fine too. I really don't care. Either way, we're losing subscribers. So, and I know for a fact some of you have been unsubscribed, not by your doing, but by YouTube's doing. So be sure to check your subscription. If somehow he's found not guilty, what kind of message does that send? You can start pleading self-defense, fearing for your life, and you're going to take what used to be scuffles and fights in high school, and you're going to have somebody, because of how this trial plays out, they're going to think I can get away with a whole lot more. No eyewitnesses, or at least none that know the whole story, I can get away with a lot. This has potential to be a huge story. And like I said, unless there's some big change and there's some people that say, well, he brought a knife, so therefore it's completely unjustified. Yeah, bringing the knife is not good for Carmelo Anthony, that's for sure. But there is a scenario in which, hey, yeah, he shouldn't have brought his knife, but Austin Metcalf did try to kill him, take his life, right? But do we have that information? I mean, I'm just giving the hypothetical there. But do we even have any inkling of that's what happened? There better be more information. If they're going to make the case for self-defense, there better be some serious proof of evidence that there was self-defense in any way. Otherwise, this whole my word against his, and then there's eyewitnesses at the tent, I don't know. Never underestimate, though, the power of narrative to influence our judicial system. It's happened before. We've seen it many, many times. And unfortunately, you cannot set yourself up to be expecting the right decision to be made all the time. So I don't know. We'll follow the story. I know the father of Austin Metcalf tried to go to a press conference being held by the family of Carmelo Anthony. He was kicked out. And so it's amazing to me how things are shaping up to be very interesting in this story. I hope Texas' judicial system does it right. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about England now, all right? Remember those people that we beat in the Revolutionary War? This is coming from the Christian Post. The Church of England is hopeful after seeing a 268% rise in social media interest in church services. So I guess, maybe they're attending online, or people are posting, commenting about it. Now, a couple of reasons. Number one, we are getting closer to Easter. And this is the time when everybody goes to church, in America. And I'm assuming, England's kind of like this too. So we're already getting around that time. Let's go ahead and read a little bit more. The Church of England is optimistic after experiencing a 268% rise in social media interest in its church services. The institution's dedicated church finder website at churchnearyou.com has recorded over 11,000 church services and events shared on social media platforms, a sharp increase from previous levels. According to the latest figures released by the denomination, total page views on the Church Finder website rose notably from 128.1 million in 2023 to 198.6 million in 2024. Quite a bit of an increase there. The increased online engagement coincides with Holy Week, the traditional one of the busiest periods for parish churches, starting with special Palm Sunday services and culminating in Easter weekend. So, yeah, like we said, it's around that time. But that's not the only thing. There's also been an increase in Bible sales in England. You can find that information as well. So what's going on? Are we genuinely seeing a turn, a return, a revival, whatever term you want to use, new interest again in Christianity in England, Great Britain, UK at large? That seems to be it appears to be that's what we're seeing. That's great. Now, you know me, I don't think that many of those churches have it right. I think the Church of England's terribly confused on their doctrine. And a lot of churches are terribly confused on their doctrine. But hey, the more people that are at least believing to some degree in the Bible and holding to some degree of biblical values, traditional values, that's a good thing. So here's the question. I guess number one, why? There's two questions. Why are they doing this? Is it because the agnostic, secularist, atheist worldview is just in decline? I think it is. I think that agnosticism, atheism, secularism, I think it's peaked, at least for our time frame right now. I mean, I think it's as popular as it ever was in like 2000, like the year 2000. It was cool, rebellious to be an atheist. But science has not come out with any new answers, and I think that's what atheists were hoping for, like scientists to be able to prove, like, hey, here's how cells can, spontaneously form, or hey, here's how the Earth really did come into existence, or, here's what caused the Big Bang. I mean, I think they were expecting to get a lot of answers, and science can't answer any of it. And it seems like science is making no more further progress now. If not, it's regressing in some ways. So maybe it's just a simple fact of, hey, it's kind of silly to try to be arguing in this ridiculous idea that we are just here by accident, so clearly there must be a divine creator. Here's another proposal for you, a possible motive as to why England is experiencing a shift back to Christianity to some degree. They're being overrun by Islam and other religions and peoples. It really sounds like, from the outside, and here's the thing, Britain, if you're watching, right, anybody from Britain who may be watching, which sometimes we do have people from at least Europe tune in every now and then, you guys have to do some better publicity, because right now, from the American perspective, what we're seeing, it sounds like you guys are just essentially another country in the Middle East. It sounds like y'all are, like Britain is fallen. And so I see how the few people who are still of England's heritage, Anglo-Saxon, what have you, how they would maybe be wanting to return back to the traditional values and ways of old. But here's the big question mark, though. Important matter to ponder. Is it too little too late? Are you already done for? When you have had wide open borders and you've accepted all of these people who are radical Islamists or other beliefs, whether it's Hindu or anything else, is it not a little bit too late? Can your shift back to Christianity actually do you any good? Or is this trying to course correct after the ship's already hit the iceberg? I really don't know. I mean, you have to keep in mind that the news doesn't always portray everything exactly like it really is, because there is an agenda. But when we picture Britain nowadays, we always probably go to the worst, picture imaginable, but we picture people being stabbed. We picture a disarmed population. I mean, you guys are hopeless if anybody tries to invade, because your army's not big enough, and your citizens are helpless. Also, maybe you already have been invaded and you've just been turned into an Islamic state now. So, that's great, I guess. England's having a little bit of a spark back to Christianity, interested in the Bible again, going to church, whatnot. But is your goose already cooked? Are you already done? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know the exact population numbers. I don't know percentage of original Anglo-Saxon, Englishmen, Scotsmen, Irishmen, you name it, Walesians, whatever the Wales. It's not Welsh, right? It's different. I don't know. It's Europe. I have no idea. I just hope that the same story isn't true about America. That, at some point in the future, America does try to have a little bit of a spark of a revival back to Christianity, people going to church again. And the big question is it too little too late? It may already be. The third tallest statue in the United States is a Hindu statue. I don't know, is our goose cooked? Are we done? Take the average Christian on the street. What do they even know about Christianity? When's the last time they've really been involved in anything related to upholding Christian values? All right, you're conservative. Great, you voted for Trump. Sure. But Trump is not going to save Christian values in America. And I'm somebody who supported Trump. I voted for him. I think it's good. I think it's good. But the president in the White House is not going to fix all of our problems. Now, he's doing a lot of good deporting people who shouldn't be here in the country, but I mean, there's a lot of people, though, that are supporting Trump that don't have the same values. Think about, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan. It's not like they're devout Christians in their worldview, in their conviction. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's great in a lot of ways, but he's not Christian. J.D. Vance's wife is not Christian. Talk about unequally yoked. So, and J.D. Vance is a Catholic, so whatever that means. It seems like we could very much be in that same position as well. And I hope for Britain's sake, and not only for Britain's sake, but our own sake, that maybe it's not too late. Maybe they can have a little bit of a revival and get back to Christian values. It is, the internet is an interesting thing. You can see a lot of trends on the internet and see how people are thinking and what the younger people are trending towards. And traditional Christian values is a more popular thing. It's much more cool. It's much cooler to be a unapologetic traditional Christian right now than it is to be, some woke furry or something, right? But I don't know. Are the tides in Britain already too strong? It'll be interesting to see. We'll keep an eye on Britain, how things are going. And maybe this is all just tied to building up to Easter and it'll all go away after that. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about an interesting theological matter. This is Friday, and often people will be speaking about the account of Christ on the cross. And when you're talking about that and the crucifixion, you cannot overlook the account of the thief on the cross in Luke 23. So I want to go to Biblify, and I want to explain a few things to you. Now, the Baptists, bless their hearts, the Baptists often appeal to the thief on the cross as an argument for not needing to be baptized, right? Well, did the thief on the cross get baptized? And, they'll use it to build their case that, baptism doesn't save you and everything. And as we read this account here, let's go ahead and read verse 39. And one of the malefactors which were hanged rallied on him. Malefactors, I guess. Saying, if thou be Christ, save thyself and us. So there's one of the thieves mocking him. You know the story very well. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, dost thou not fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss. Verse 42, and he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. Verse 33, and Jesus said unto him, verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. And so this is often invoked as the story of saved by grace through faith. And the problem is, for the Baptists, their misunderstanding, they believe this to be in their support of, you don't have to be baptized or anything like that. For the presbyters and the Church of Christ and some of those, they respond with, well, this was a special case. How could he be baptized? He couldn't be baptized. He was on the cross. He didn't have the opportunity. So it's because he didn't have the opportunity to be baptized that Christ granted him salvation without, being baptized. We, however, who understand that our gospel is a mystery, so we can't read our salvation into Luke chapter 23, we, as right dividers, even have to address the matter for ourselves. So I just want to talk about this one because I know it's going to be a story that comes up. It's going to be told at church services. It's going to be mentioned in articles and sermons and things like that. We need to be very careful in trying to build theology from particular people under particular circumstances. I've said that often, but the Bible contains passages that speak to us, right? Paul's our apostle. Paul speaks to matters concerning an individual's salvation. There's times in which the Bible speaks to an individual's standing before God and obligations to God, and it's not about us. It's in the Old Testament passages, correct? It's the days of the law. You could even go before that, the age of conscience. Cain, if thou doest well, will that not be accepted? And so there are instructions given to general men for their given dispensation. What we should not do, it would be a mistake to do, is to use a very particular event, like the thief on the cross, like Pharaoh, or the calling of the disciples, or Job, or anybody, right, using very unique historical events to build a soteriology, a matter of salvation or doctrine, Christian living for us today, or for anybody for any time. Because here's the thing, Job is unique in his own dispensation. There, outside of Israel and the tribulation, there's probably nobody that could really say they were being afflicted like Job was, in large degree. So, I want to discuss this matter of the thief on the cross, not so much to try to refute those who say, look, saved by grace through faith. All of you right dividers who say that Jesus didn't preach the grace gospel, whatever. Look, there's the thief on the cross. There's the evidence. He'll be with the Lord in paradise. I would say, don't be so quick to just assume you can make doctrinal application from a single unique individual. I mean, let's just consider another interesting story. Let's go to this one to give a good illustration. Let's go to Genesis chapter 5:21. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. It's a very perplexing story, very fascinating. Enoch walked with God, and he was not there, for God took him. I do not know anyone who tries to use the Enoch account, the Enoch event, and argue that if a man would walk with God, he would not die and God would just take him with him. Nobody argues that. Nobody says, what are you talking about? Did you not read about Enoch? If he walked with God, God would take him. So God will take us if we walk with him. I guess, most people don't walk enough with God like Enoch did. I actually remember being younger and reading that story and wondering, I wonder if I walked and talked with God enough, he would take me. Kind of made me nervous, right? I wanted to go play high school baseball, things like that. We know not to do those things. We know that that was treated as a very unique, specific event. So if we can discern that, hey, something going on with Enoch is very different from other people and how God dealt with other people, is it not possible that we could look at the thief on the cross and say, you know, what can we get out of it? Let's ask that question. Going back to Luke, let's ask ourselves what we can actually get out of it instead of trying to make it all about us, all right? And reading our soteriology, our doctrine into that passage, okay? So, so what do we have? We have one thief who mocks him. He railed on him, saying, "If thou be the Christ, save thyself and us." Kind of like, prove it. I don't really believe you are who you say you are unless you save us. That's that thief. This thief, though, the other thief, does not rail against Christ and ask him to prove himself. What does he say? Do you not fear, dost not thou fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? So here you are hanging on the cross. Do you not have any fear of God or respect to God, seeing that you're hanging here on the tree with him? There's a number of things that we could consider what he means by that, but I want to focus on the rest of it. What you do get out of this is reverence for God. Dost thou not thou fear God? This thief has reverence for God. And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. There's the thief. He acknowledges it. Look, we're here because we did something wrong, right? We're a thief. Is he actually called a thief? I guess there's maybe another passage, it says he was crucified between two thieves. I just want to make note of that. But he says, we deserve to be here, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. However, look what he says, this man hath done nothing amiss. There's nothing that he has done that is wrong. He is everything that he said he was. This thief is acknowledging Christ as the Messiah. And then furthermore, look what he says in verse 42. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. That he will have his kingdom. He will be the reigning king. And he believes in a resurrection. Look at that. He believes that Christ will be resurrected because he is the rightful king. This is a Jew, I think. Does thou not fear God? He's a Jew who believes that that's his Messiah. And he's sinned. He's trespassed. But he believes in the righteousness of his Messiah. And then Jesus' response is, verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. What do we mean by paradise there? Is that Abraham's bosom? Is that heaven itself? We would often, most right dividers would probably tell you to be Abraham's bosom, not heaven itself. But that's what he's granted. Those are the things that we can take from it. A Jew who believed that Jesus was the Messiah, and Jesus granted unto him to be in paradise. He didn't use the word kingdom. No, we don't spiritualize the kingdom of heaven or whatever. He calls it paradise. So I think that what we get from it is, just as this man crucified on the cross, he believed upon his Messiah. That's what Israel needed to do. Like what Joyce said, they are examples that faith is required for salvation. Faith is required for Israel's restoration, resurrection, receiving of the kingdom, all of those things. And so when you hear preachers, this week, if you go to a church service, you read something online, they're always going to appeal to the thief on the cross. They're making the classic mistake, though, of trying to build doctrine from historical events. Don't do that. We don't do it with Enoch. We don't do it with others, right? We shouldn't be doing it with others. We don't use Paul's calling, Saul, Saul, why art thou persecuting thou me? Or why does thou persecutest thou me? Whatever the language is. We don't make that our picture of salvation either, right? That's not our doctrine that God calls us out. Now, the Calvinists may take such a view because they read themselves in all passages. But we would do well. When someone brings up the thief on the cross, our response probably should just be, that's an amazing account, isn't it? God working in a very unique way in which he understands this man that Jesus is the Messiah and that he'll be in the kingdom one day, that Christ himself will reign. And so, a great deal of faith there. But don't build our doctrine, right, from that passage. All right. Well, with that, I may let you all out a little bit soon today. I've got work I got to get to. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a good Easter. We're going to be going live, and I'm going to do my very best to make sure that the live stream is working as it should. I apologize for some of the hiccups, but bear with us. We're going nowhere. This is Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I'm Pastor Mark Baze. Hope you have a good time. Hopefully you get to see family. Hopefully you get to attend a church service, whether online or in person, and feel encouraged and have some hope. And reflect on the great sacrifice made for us. So thank you all so much. We'll talk to you later.